Hello. In this lesson, we will pick up from our last lesson. So if you recall, we wrote our student Apex class for the new learning management system. So let's say that there is another team that uses our cutting edge code to create new students. And in doing so, we get some feedback from them. Essentially the feedback that we get is, the developers come back and they're like, look, this is great. You wrote this nice class for us, but in us using it, right, like we have to type a lot of code to basically enter in a student. So just to give you an example, right, like for each student that you would set and using this class, you would essentially based on our current implementation, you would write a lot of code. You would write about 3 lines to set each one of the values. So assuming that if they have to do enter in about 100 students, you can just imagine that they would have to basically write 3 lines for every student that they enter. So the feedback that they're giving us is, hey, can we optimize this, or can we make this class a little bit better to where we can we don't have to type that much code. So going back to our Apex class again, we have some stuff that's listed up here. So what I'm going to do now is, Salesforce fortunately provides you functionality to where, so in doing so, I guess showing it is a little better. I'm going to write a new method, and the name of the method is going to be the same as the class. And what this method is going to do is it's going to take some input parameters, right? So at a minimum, it's going to take the student name. It's going to take uh, the status. Sorry, Boolean is student active. And it's also going to take the age, which I'll put right before the status actually. So we'll do integer student age. So we basically have a method here that's taking in 3 parameters. It's taking in a student name, it's taking in a student age, and it's also taking in a third Boolean, is the student active. And what we'll do with this is, within this, what we'll do is we'll just, let's see, set name, and we'll set that to be student name, and we'll do this set age, and we'll pass in the age, and then what we'll do is do this set is active, and we'll pass in is student active, and that does that. So yeah, I just wrote one method. As you can see, it has the same name as the class name, and it's taking in 3 parameters. And I'm going to save it. If all goes well, it should be able to save it. Okay, so I have one method. And also, right, so we wrote this one method, and what we're gonna do now is write one more method. So the feedback essentially was that it takes a lot of lines of code to write stuff to this object, and it takes a lot of lines of code to read stuff from it. So if we could simplify this and make it to where it doesn't have to be this many lines of code to do these operations. So I'm going to write another function here, and that essentially is going to be, let's see, public string get student details. And this is also a getter, right, because it's beginning with a get, just to keep things organized. And what we are going to return from this is name. And what I'm doing is I'm adding essentially, I'm joining a string with the method value. So I'll get more into that if it's not clear. So we'll do that. Return name. And we'll do age. Oops. Active. Active. Okay. Put a semicolon. Get rid of this extra space. I'm going to try saving it if something is not right. Let's see, return name plus this get age. Oh, took me a while to see that. Try saving it again. Okay, so it's saved that. So what I'm gonna do now is get rid of that space again and try saving it. So yeah, two functions that I added, or two methods that I added, one being the same name as that. One sets a bunch of information for the student, and the second really is a getter that's returning basically, in a nice formatted way. It's basically joining the name with the thing. So name, age, active, it's using the getters that we've already defined here, and it's basically doing it. So anytime you are calling a method within a method of the same class, like in this case, right, we have a method, but we want to call another method within the same class. So you would use, this keyword dot and the name of the method. And this way, basically, what this refers to is the same class. And once we practice a bit more, you'll see it, right? It's gonna make more sense. But for right now, just keep in mind, if you have to call another method from the same method in the same class, just use the this keyword. Okay, so now that we've saved it, let's see how we should be able to do it. So I'm gonna go back here. I had some code that was written from the last time. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna comment this out. And the way you comment code out in Salesforce is, you can basically put a block of text like within these two characters, and that comments out everything. So in this way, I still want this to be there, but I don't want this to execute when I hit the word execute. So anything that's kind of yellowed out and is between these, this is more for read only, something we can see, helps us out with the comments, but it won't execute. And so I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to try creating, right? We've written the code, and we are trying to solve a problem. So I am going to utilize my, declare a variable of the student class, and just like last time, but with a little difference. So this, I'm gonna call this time Sarah Adams, random name that came, age 22, and 3. So I'm basically creating an object of my student class, and instead of last time, right, we left these parentheses and there was nothing in it. But what I'm doing right now is I'm passing in 3 values. And the first value I'm passing is Sarah Adams, which is the name. The second value I'm passing is the age. And the third value I'm passing is the active status. in this case to be true. So I'm adding that in here. And what I also want to do is see if my other method works, which is to get that same information and whether this whole thing works, right? So I'm going to do a system debug, but this time I'm going to do student same and call in my method that I had before, which was get student details, this. So if you recall it, I'm going to move this a little bit on the side. All I'm trying to do is create a student object, and now I'm hoping that this would call this right here, should call this method right here. And I'm passing in the name, age, and the flag, which should be represented, right? These are variables. We know they're labels. So as we pass that, we know that student name is going to correspond to Sarah Adams, student age is going to correspond to 22, and is student active is going to correspond to true. So in doing so, as part of that, method, I am basically using the same methods that we had already used, set age, set name. So basically I'm consolidating everything, right? Instead of having separate methods set this up, I'm trying to consolidate it all and call it from within here. And in my second method that I'm doing is the debug get student details, which is using the getters that we had already written, but basically, right, it should return a string with the name, age, active, and it should use the getters and get those values. So I'm going to try running it. I have this set to open log. I'm going to execute it. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to hit debug only. And look, voila, we got a name, Sarah Adams, age 22, active, true. So we have effectively solved the problem or the issue that was raised by the other team, right? In this case, now, as the development team or those other development teams are using our code, instead of writing a lot of lines, right, to set some basic information about the student, right, we've consolidated that. So instead of 6 lines, we're down to 2 lines. So we've basically made our class more awesome by using what we call a constructor. And a constructor is essentially a special method within Apex that allows us to set up the object properly. So basically, Apex constructors, a constructor in Apex is a special method used to create and set up new objects from a class. You might use a constructor in a Salesforce application to initialize settings for a new customer record, set default values, or prepare data when the object is first created. So basically, think of constructor as a setup method that's used to create and initialize objects from a class. A class, like I said, this whole thing, the student is, it's like a blueprint, and each object that we create off this blueprint, each object that we create is basically, think of it as a unique building that's made using that blueprint. So the thing about the constructor method is it automatically runs when you create a new instance of a class. So in this case, we created one student, and automatically as we did that, it executed that. So it does that. So it helps out. So it's again, fortunately, something that Apex provides us doing so, and it has the same name as the class name. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what constructors are, and as we go forward, we'll see. We'll be creating objects all the time using this type of syntax. So one keynote that I did want to discuss with you real quick on the same lesson is, as you notice, right? Like, look, we were talking about primitive variables in the previous lesson. But in this case, look, we created our student class and we declared a variable, right? So this right here is a type. We are declaring a variable of this type, but this is not a primitive variable. This is, something more specialized. It has additional methods, additional functionalities. So we don't consider that as a primitive type. It's made up of other primitive types, right? Kind of like building blocks. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. And the second point again is something that you guys also saw, that which was the comment thing, right? So if you want to comment out things as you're writing it, maybe you wrote something and now you want to try something else, but you don't want to get rid of your code, you can easily go back in your code and you're like, okay, you know what? I want to add some comments. So you could either do, chunks of lines of, multiple lines of code this way, right? Like this whole thing is a comment. So it's not going to be saved when we save the class. Or if you just wanted to comment out, like for example, a single line, right? Like if you're like, okay, you know what? As part of this constructor, what I don't want to do is I don't want to set the age as part of this constructor, right? I want to avoid that. So, just as an example. So you could do 2 slashes. And the quick way to know that this is a comment is it should change the color of that whole line. So, for single lines, double slashes. For multiple lines, just do a / asterisk and then have a matching one like that, and it will turn it all. So anything in between that is a comment. So yeah, just something quick I wanted to go over with you guys. That being said, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach out, and I will catch you guys in the next tutorial.